Hi, it's Marilyn Price with Tribrainy Inc. and the Mentor Project and puppets. Today, puppets, sort of. Been debating back and forth, so I'm going to let you make the decision. I am actually going to ask you. So, the story we are about to hear has been one of my all time favorites for a variety of reasons. Number one reason is a beautiful story. Teaches us so many things about the mentors in our life. One of my mentors was my grandpa. His name was Al, and he used to do all sorts of wonderful things with, although he was a very serious man. He taught me how to skip, and he was always present in my life until I was 16 years old. And to this day, I still think about all the things we did together. And also, my daddy, an up and coming, every day should be, is Father's Day. So I went back to one of my favorite old resources, which of course is Golden Books. And I remembered of this one, which is called, as you can see, Daddies. Now, this was published with the original 12 in 1942 on the great classic Golden Books, and it's lovely book, so out of date. One of the few that are, because all it talks about is daddy's going to work and what they do, and the rest of us, and the nice part, of course, is that daddies come home to do their favorite thing, which is to be with us. So I thought about showing this book to you, and I said, no, you know what? Grandpas were daddies too. So I found this book, refound this book by Tomie dePaoli, written in 1981, and it is dedicated to Bob. Now, I don't know who Bob was in Tomie dePaoli's life, but I have a feeling he was someone very important to him. So let me just show you his art. And then I'm going to do something I try not to do. I'm going to read the book to you off of my cues. But before we do that, I'll show you my big decision. We're going to use these. These are called blocks for those of you who are not acquainted with blocks, something that are still played with today. So I thought, well, here's a puppet I made of Grandpa Bob. I could use him in our story. And so here he comes. He's a puppet that is moved just like that. And he can do blocks. And that was very important in my story. So that would be good. And then here's a puppet I made of Bobby. Note the similarity in names, and you'll find out why in just a few seconds when I start the story. Now, that is awfully cool as well. But the trouble with good mobility for Bobby and Bob is that in order to make the story really work, Bobby sometimes needs to be little, and sometimes he needs to be bigger. So I thought, I could do that, and maybe I will. Then I went up to my space and I found this character, which is a teddy bear. And as you can see, he's old, really old, because he belonged to my dad and mom. They used to take him, gave them to them when I left for college, so they would have something, not that they, and he traveled with them. So whenever they came to visit me in college and beyond, they would bring, his name is not Bob, but we can rename him if we decide to use him. And then there was this little one that they gave me years by. So I thought maybe I'll use them. And then I thought, well, just will show you these in case you want to tell these stories with your Bob and your Bobby. So I think, so what do you think? Bears or puppets? Oh, you want me to try it with puppets? And forgive me for my failures. You know what? I like you for that. So I want to say thank you to Teddy. I think his name was Ted. No, I'm sorry. His name was Schwartz. Long story. And this one, oops, dude fell. See, now I already know what I have to do. I'm going to put them carefully away in a careful space because they are important to me. Put their chairs down gently. Maybe you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put little Bear, little Schwartz there. And I'm going to put big Schwartz there. And you know what they're doing for me? They're being my audience. I love that. I'd like to say, why didn't I think of that? But I think I did. So here we go. All right. And every once in a while, when it's easier, they are going to disappear from the screen so that I can move our story along. Okay. It's not that they're leaving, it's just because. All right. Bobby was named after his best friend, his grandfather, Bob. When Bobby was just a baby, his grandfather told everyone, Bobby will be 3 years old before he can say my name. So I'm going to call him Bob. Me, Bob, and him, Bobby. And so he did. Bob was the one who helped teach Bobby how to walk. Hold on to my hands. Bobby, his grandfather, would say, now one foot and now the other. One of the best things Bob and Bobby would do was to play with the old wooden blocks, which were kept on a shelf in the sewing room. First one and then the other. The blocks had letters on the sides. And other things on the rest. And Bob and Bobby would slowly, very slowly, put the blocks up. The very last thing they would do would be to put the one with the elephant on top. And Bobby would say, that's the elephant block. And Bobby would laugh and laugh and laugh. And Bob, his grandpa would sneeze. And the blocks would fall down. Then Bob would sit Bobby on his knee and tell him a story. Bob, tell me how you taught me how to walk. And Bob would tell Bobby how he taught him to walk. First one foot and then the other. And his grandfather would tell him that story. It was his favorite story. On Bobby's 5th birthday, Bob and he had a special day. They went to the amusement park. They rode a roller coaster, ate hot dogs. They had their pictures taken in a machine. Remember those machines? And then they sang a song. Happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me, happy birthday, dear Bobby, happy birthday to me. And they made a recording. And then on the way home, Bob would say, would you like to hear a story? And Bobby would say, tell me about how you taught me how to walk. And he would. First one foot, then the other. Long after Bobby's birthday, Bobby came home and Grandpa wasn't there. Where's Grandpa? Where's Bob? He's very sick and he had to go to the hospital. I want to see him. I miss him. Dad said he had something that's called a stroke and you can't go. But why? I want to see him. You can't, honey, his mom told him. Right now, Bob's too sick to see anyone. He can't move his arms, and he can't move his legs, and he can't talk. The doctor's not sure if he ever will be able to. We'll just have to wait and see. Bobby didn't know what to do. He didn't want to eat. He had a hard time going to sleep. Bob just had to get better. One day, when Bobby came home from school, his father told him, Bob came home, but he's still very sick. He can't move or talk. When he sees your mother and me, He still doesn't know who we are. And the doctor doesn't know if he'll get better. So don't be scared if he doesn't remember you. But Bobby did get scared. His grandfather didn't remember him. He just lay in bed. And when Dad carried him, Bob sat in a chair, but he didn't move and he didn't talk. One day, Bobby tried to say something to Bob, but the sound that came out was awful. And Bobby ran from the room. Bob sounded like a monster. He can't help it, Mommy said. So Bobby went back to the room where Bob was sitting. It looked like a tear was coming down from his face. I didn't mean to run away, Bob. I was just scared. I'm sorry. Do you know who I am? Bobby said to Bob. Oh, Bobby, Mom said, you're just going to frustrate or upset yourself. Grandpa doesn't recognize anyone. But Bobby knew better. He ran to the sewing room and he brought back the blocks on the shelf and he took them to the room where Bob was sitting. Bob's mouth tried a little smile, and Bobby knew what he had to do. He put the blocks one and one on top of each other. Smile. When Bobby put down the block with the elephant on top, Bobby was sure that Bob smiled. And then the blocks fell down or were pushed. And Bobby laughed and laughed and laughed. And Bob made a strange noise that sounded like the sneeze he used to make. And then Bobby knew that Bob would get better. And Bob slowly did. Sometimes he tried to talk, but it sounded strange. But Bobby was patient and he waited. And then Bob began to move his fingers just a little. And then soon Bobby was able to help Bob feed himself. And one day, Bob could almost hold a spoon by himself. But he still couldn't walk. When the weather got nice and warm, Dad carried Bob out to the chair on the lawn. Bobby sat with him. So Bobby told Bob some stories. I don't know what they were. Maybe they were about how Bob taught Bobby how to walk. Then Bob slowly stood up. You, me, walk, he said to Bobby. Bobby knew exactly what he should do. Bobby stood in front of Bob and let Bob lean on his shoulders. Okay, Bob, now 1 foot. Bob moved 1 foot. And now the other foot. Bob moved the other. And then 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 the other. By the end of the summer, Bob and Bobby could walk to the end of the lawn, and Bob could talk better and better each day. And then Bob said, Bobby, tell the story how you taught me, Bob, how to walk. Well, Bob, you leaned on my shoulders, and then I said, now 1 foot, now the other. 1 foot, and now the other. And before you knew it, you were walking. There is a special relationship between grandparents and their grandchildren. I know that one for sure. Now one foot, now the other, Tomie dePaoli, which was dedicated to Bob. I have a feeling I know who Bob was. This is Marilyn Price, who told you a story. And now I'd like you to tell a story to somebody else. Have a beautiful day. Have a lovely time doing all the stories that you love the best. But most of all, please remember to tell someone you love them and help them walk upright and proud, just